Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to the Whiskey Cove. And on today's episode, we start the Heaven Hill Ultimate Tier List. Run the video. Alright then folks, let's get into today's video. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider being a subscriber. It's the best way to give back to the channel and it costs absolutely nothing. So go down below and hit that red button there and then come back and watch the video. With that being said, this is Heaven Hill, the ultimate Heaven Hill tier list. So this will be made on tier maker, as you can see on the screen here. And just remind ourselves that we previously did the Buffalo Trace Part 1 and Part 2 tier lists. And if some people said, why don't you do a Heaven Hill tier list? There's so many Heaven Hill bottles. We'll kind of get into as many as we can today. And then we'll go into Part 2 at a later time there. With that being said, let's get into the ultimate tier list by Heaven Hill. So first up, we are going to do Evan Williams. Just a straight old offering. Evan Williams. And this isn't Evan Williams, this is Jack Daniels. But I like to have a bottle in front of me when I'm talking about a bottle. I don't have the Evan Williams, but I've definitely tried it a bunch of times. I actually quite like the standard offering of Evan Williams. It kind of does remind me of Jack Daniels as well, which is why I picked this bottle to have in front of me. It's cheap, you can pretty much find it anywhere, and it holds a little bit of a special place in my heart as well, because it was available over in the UK as I was kind of breaking into bourbon. Bear in mind, the only bourbons available were Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, if you can call it a bourbon, and Evan Williams, the black one, which is what we're talking about. We're the only ones available. So with that being said, I'm going to put this in the C category, the Evan Williams Black Labeled. It's good, but it's not bad, but it's pretty good, and you can mix it. It's not a bad bourbon at all. So that was the original Evan Williams offering. Next up, let's do Evan Williams Bottled in Bond. Hey, look, we use this for a bunch of different things. We use it for cocktails, we use it for just drinking every day. I just took it into a flask camping the other day. This is just so versatile, so fun. I love this bottle. And this is one of my top bottles under $50. I'm gonna put this in the A category. I definitely think that it deserves to be in the A category. And let's remind ourselves of the categories just once more. So we have S, A, B, C, and D. This is going into the A category. It's cheap as chips. You can find it anywhere. It's tasty, has a decent amount of proof with 50% ABV at 100 proof. And also, it's just like I said, it's very versatile. It's just so consistent as well. Evan Williams in the A category, how about that? Next, we're gonna do the Evan Williams Single Barrel. So I'm not going to do the 70, I think it's the 1783. I haven't tried the 1783, so I can't honestly review that with you folks at home there. But I have tried this. I think that it was just okay. I think this is a little bit light. It's a little bit thin. It drinks very easy. So if you're someone who's looking for a lighter, very drinkable whiskey, then this is probably for you. It does have a lot of peanut notes there as well. And like I said, just too thin, not much body going on there. I'm gonna put this in the D category. Sadly, I was hoping this would be better with like the age statement. It's like a 7-year-old whiskey. However, it just wasn't. It just fell so flat, which is why I am putting this in the D category. So all the Evan Williams we're going to talk about here today. I think you can also get the Evan Williams 12. I haven't been able to try that, but if you've tried it at home, if you heard great things about it, maybe you can let us know down in the comments below. So then let's move into Bernheim Wheat Whiskey. So you have Bernheim Wheat Whiskey and you have the Bernheim Barrel Proof Whiskey. So let's do the Bernheim Wheat Whiskey first. Ignore the barrel proof label there. So I really like the Bernheim Wheat Whiskey. I think it's, like I said, affordable. I think it offers something quite unique as well. You get like a 7-year age statement, which with a budget wheat whiskey. It's like $30 as well. You have some really nice cherry notes and some really nice sweetness there as well with that. I'm gonna put that one, like I said, I really like it. I'm also gonna put that in the A category. I really like that whiskey. And it's one of the go-to kind of ones I reach that I can find in a lot of different places as well. With the Bernheim Barrel Proof, and let's do this one next. I was a little bit disappointed when I tried this. I know I've done the review on it already. It may or may not be out by now. If you haven't, go and check it out. And I was a little bit disappointed. I was expecting big things because heck, I've just put the baseline, the wheat whiskey from Bernheim in the A category. So I was hoping that this may even be one of the whiskeys of the year. However, it just like you have some really nice sweetness there on the front, maybe a touch of like barrel char, but then it just falls off the cliff, and it's just so upfront. Like all the flavors are just upfront with the sweetness, and then it just goes away, and there's not really any body or any finish to it. Really disappointed with this whiskey. However, I don't think it's worthy quite of the D category, so that's why I'm going to put it into the C category. I think it's just good enough. It's very unique as well. There's not many barrel proof wheat whiskies out there. It's a good addition to the whiskies that I have here already, but just for me, it just wasn't as good, or wasn't what I was expecting. So that way, Bernheim wheat whiskey barrel proof is going into the C category. Next up, let's do Larceny small batch, and let's do Larceny barrel proof, which will be represented by a barrel proof bottle here. So the Larceny small batch, the difference between a wheated bourbon and a wheated whiskey is that a wheated whiskey has at least 51% of the mash bill has to be wheat, where a wheated bourbon, 51% of the mash bill has to be at least corn. But with a wheated bourbon, the second major ingredient is wheat, which is why it's called a wheated bourbon. So with this, the small batch, I really dig the Larceny small batch single pick barrel picks that you can get. I've only had really great experiences from them, but they're much better than the regular small batch offer. And the regular small batch offer is just it's just okay. I wish it was a little bit better. I wish it was just as good as the single barrel offerings that they sometimes put out. So that's why I'm putting that in the C category. Moving on to these barrel proof editions. So then when I'm grading kind of like the Larceny and the Elijah Craig barrel proofs, I'll just try to think of the best ones I've had and the worst ones I've had, and try to get somewhere in between on these. So I've had some really good ones, these Larceny barrel proof. I think the B521 was phenomenal. I remember that being excellent. But then I think I've tried the A122, and that was just like fire in your mouth. So on that basis, I'm just gonna put them in the middle of the road there, in the B category. I think you can have some really great ones, and then ones that are just not good whatsoever. So I think the B category is probably the best place for them. MSRP, you're probably going to be paying around $70 now. That price is going up every year, and to be fair, I don't really buy these anymore. This is B522, so I'm a little bit behind, and I just don't think they're worth buying all the time, because there's 3 editions every year, and I just think they're probably just not worth it, because you'll miss more than you hit. So that was the Larceny small batch and barrel proof. Moving on to a staple of Heaven Hill's collection, that is the Elijah Craig barrel proof. Let's do the Elijah Craig barrel proof, and we'll also do the Elijah Craig small batch represented by this ball. I like the small batch. I think you can pick it up any day of the week and drink it and have a good whiskey. I believe it's 47% ABV, so it's got some pretty good proof. It battles with Buffalo Trace a lot in terms of like standard bourbon offerings that you can go to or recommend, or as you're just starting out, a beginner's bourbon if you like. Again, much like the Larceny, they do some really great small batch single barrels if you can get them. They're a lot easier to get those these barrel proof single barrels than they are to get the small batch ones, so they're quite rare, so you probably should keep an eye out for those. But for the small batch, I'm going to put that in the B category as well, in the middle of the road. Much like the Larceny, I'm going to try to average out my experiences with Elijah Craig barrel proof. This one is the C921. My favorite has probably been in the last 4 years. Probably been the B520. That was such a good whiskey, and still is such a good whiskey, because I have like 2-3 bottles of them. Also the C920 and the A919, big shout out to those ones as well. But I think that this on average is better than Larceny. I think that the highs are fantastically high, but then the lows are just not as low as some of the other Larceny products, which is why I'm putting this in the A category. I think it deserves to be there. Yes, the price on the barrel proofs has continued to creep up and creep up and creep up every year, but it's still excellent value for money if you take into consideration like Booker's, which is like $110 now. It's probably not worth that sort of money when you can get one of these for like $75, and that's why this Elijah Craig barrel proof is going into the A category. So next up, we have Elijah Craig 18. So I think I've talked a little bit about Elijah Craig 18 on this channel. Is that when I first got this bottle, it wasn't great at all. I almost had some like over oak notes, but as I've gone back to it and back to it, Those notes have kind of like rounded out a little bit, which is a testimony to bottles of whiskey. When you just crack them, don't quite write them off there yet. It has some really nice big cherry notes. I don't get the Elijah Craig or Heaven Hill peanut funk on the Elijah Craig 18. It has a solid oak backbone, but it does have a little bit of sweetness there as well. If you really like an aged bourbon, then this will be right up your street. Proof is 90 proof or 45% ABV. I think if you go much higher than that, you're gonna get much more of those oak tannin notes, which will add to that over oaked note. So like I said, I really like this bottle. I really think you should go out there and hunt for it and try and find it. Yes, the MSRP is like $160, but you have to take into consideration when you get over to like 12 years worth or 12 years of age when it comes to bourbon, the yield just like falls off in a barrel. So probably when they crack open these Elijah Craig barrel proofs, there's probably only like 30 to 40% of the yield left, and that's being generous. It's probably more on the 30% mark. I'm going to put Elijah Craig 18 in the S category, which is the first one today out of all these. That might not be a whiskey that you agree with being in the S category, but you know, let us know in the comments down below. So I think what we'll do is, because we have like another 9 bottles to get through, we'll split this into a part 2. We'll let this video post first and maybe hear some feedback if there's anything else you want to add it to the list. But just keep in mind, I only talk about whiskeys I've had. So I have had the Parker's Heritage Carousel finish, which is the orange one, and I've had the wheat whiskey as well, which we'll talk about next time. And then also as well the Pikesville, the Elijah Craig toasted, the ones that we'll do, the Rittenhouse, the Henry McKenna's, the Heaven Hill 7. We still have a bunch of great ones to get through. Tune in for the second part there. So as we drink through the world's whiskeys, one glass at a time, cheers.